In this video, everyone, another top 10 plus 1 mistakes that newbie motorhomers might make. I loved making these videos, everyone. I've done a couple before. When I look back to when we first had our red T6 VW transporter camper van, this one, I do miss that van. We knew nothing. We were completely naive. Yes, of course, we'd watched some videos like this would be, I guess, and we've spoken to people, but ultimately we learn by doing what we do, don't we? So we learnt the hard way. We took the van out, and of course you realise, oh, we should have bought this, we needed this, or we didn't need to buy that, etc. We're learning every day, aren't we? We've done this for a few years now, and I'm not going to look at you now on camera and say we know everything. Nobody does. But I'm hoping that the next 10 plus 1, because I like to give a little bonus at the end, these 10 plus 1 mistakes that some people may make, well, I just hope it's helpful, particularly if you're obviously completely new to it and you're considering buying a camper van or motorhome. Bear with us, we'll go through these as quick as we can, but I just hope you find them useful. So number 1 is packing. Now, we all know what it's like, don't we? If we were going on holiday in the car, we normally ram the boot as full as it can be. Things end up being on the laps of our kids in the back because we've run out of space, etc. Or maybe you're squeezing that last item in a case because you need to fit it in because you're going to board a plane and it's got to fit in that case. With a motorhome, or a camper van, it's slightly different because, of course, you have a maximum weight that you can carry in the van. We've done a video about weights. I'll put a link in the description below, everyone. There is a maximum payload, therefore, that you can have in the van. So to give you an example, this particular van that we're sitting in has a maximum weight of 3,500 kilograms, which just so happens to coincide with the fact that that means anyone with a UK driving licence can drive them. You don't need a C1 entitlement. If you live in the UK, you probably know what that is already. You don't need a C1 entitlement to drive one of these vans. And the manufacturers know that, so they build a lot of vehicles up to the 3,500 kilograms. But the important point here is, what is the mass in running order value? Now that is simply, it's called MIRO, mass in running order. That's basically the weight of the vehicle when it left the factory with certain things. It'll have probably full amount of fuel. It allows for the Ducato with roller team, it allows for 70 kilograms for the driver, etc. Anyway, you'll get a certificate and it'll have a value. The value in this van came to 2,921 kilos. So using my Birmingham mathematics, that gives you 579 kilos of payload. What you don't want to be doing is taking everything other than the kitchen sink, because if you've got a motorhome like this, you now have a kitchen sink. You don't want to be packing everything up to the kitchen sink, because at the end of the day, you're risking going overweight. And do you really need it? Now, okay, we have, I was going to say 2 kids, but they're kind of grown up now. But there's 4 of us that are travelling in the van, and therefore there's 4 of us that need clothes, etc. But we've always packed quite light. When I gave you the example of the car, I kind of made it a rule in the family that if we needed to place things inside the cabin area, and therefore because the boot was full, that it weren't going to go, because I'm not a fan of seeing things rammed to the roof. It's kind of the same with the van. Now, we use something called packing cubes. They're in our Amazon storefront shop, the link to which is always in the description below if you want to take a gander, everyone. We get a small commission if you buy anything using the link. We find them really useful, and we just pack light. We tend to use one for each sort of like type of clothing. So you'll have day wear in one and night wear in another, and maybe towels in another, etc. But you can pack them in quite well, and they actually don't take up much space. But what I'm saying is, of course, is you need to minimise what you're taking. And of course, you're only going to know that when you go out on your first trip, because you've got to consider the weight as much as the space in the van. Number 2, know the size of your van. If you've only driven a car in your life, then driving a van is a little tiny bit different. The van that we're in is 2.35 metres wide, and it's near enough 3 metres tall. 2.35 metres wide means that there's things that you need to consider. But in the height department, of course, You might be going along some A road, B road or whatever, and there could be a bridge ahead, and okay, the bridge is going to have a nice big warning on it saying what the height restriction is. But you're going to have to make that immediate decision as to whether the vehicle is going to get through it or not. So I would always recommend getting a sticker. We had them made by a company that no longer does them, unfortunately. But if you look on eBay, I'm sure you'll find somebody that does. Get a sticker. I've got two. I've got one placed in the top of the windscreen, and I've got one in case the sun visor's down on the back of the sun visor. It just means that as you're nearing that bridge and you see the sign, you can just quickly glance up at the sticker and go, I'm okay. I can fit. The next one sounds obvious, but I'm going to say it anyway, and that's plan your route. So we toured recently parts of Shropshire, and it was a lovely trip. But what I was doing every time the night before we were going to the next site is I was planning that trip. And the reason why I think planning the trip is more important than you may think is because you have to again consider the size of the vehicle that you're driving, particularly the width of the vehicle that you're driving on this example. So what I found myself doing was there was an option that would save maybe 5 miles or something like that, but it would involve a long trek across a B road. Now if you're not in the UK, a B road is basically a smaller road, an A road being effectively a trunk road, so they tend to be bigger roads and they can handle heavier vehicles better. So to save this 5 miles, Google Maps was giving us a direction that was taking us down B roads. Now I am going to do something about sat-navs in the future, everyone, as far as should you have a sat-nav where you can put the measurements in, etc. But anyway, even the sat-nav that came with this vehicle, which allows you to put measurements in, and we have, it can still send you down some lanes that aren't, shall we say, ideal. So we deliberately planned it where we added that extra bit of mileage and we stuck to the A roads, and it just made the whole journey so much more relaxing. Because at the end of the day, you want that journey to be relaxing, and you've got a vehicle with, particularly on ours, big sticky out mirrors, big expensive sticky out mirrors. You don't want to be continuously fretting about those mirrors when you've got vehicles coming the other way. So I would always say, pick your routes accordingly. Try and avoid B roads, unless of course you get to the final bit where the campsite quite often is down the end of a B road. Try and avoid them until you get as near to the campsite as you can. Use Google Street View. Google Street View is your friend. I use Street View all the time because, particularly if there's vehicles on that Google Street View when you have a look, particularly if there's trucks on that Google Street View when you're having a look, that is so helpful because it gives you a good gauge as to how much room you've actually got on that lane. The next one is nice and simple. Don't put anything heavy in the cupboards above the gas hob. Our gas hob has got a glass top, and I've seen one too many pictures of glass hobs where the glass is shattered simply because things have moved around since you were driving along, and then you've opened up that cupboard and one of the tins of food or something has fallen out, and I think we know the rest. Number 5, don't underestimate the length of the electric hookup cable or EHU cable that you might need. Don't underestimate it, because when we had our first van, it's that van again, I'll put a picture of our transporter up there. When we had that van, we bought a starter kit, and that starter kit came with a 10-metre cable. We found on the very first trip that we had to park kind of not how Morris Leisure wanted us to park to reach the EHU point. 10 metres doesn't cut it. In our Amazon storefront shop, we've only got a 25-metre cable, because although that sounds like a lot of cable, you're covering pretty much all bases if you have that one. And if you have it on a handy reel, it really only takes a few extra seconds to unwind it all. But you do need to unwind it all, of course, because otherwise you risk something called induction. We've covered that in this video. So don't underestimate the length of cable that you need. Number 6. I would definitely recommend printing out a list of error codes for your heating system. Now, that probably sounds a bit sort of like, well, that's a bit of a downer, isn't it? We're going on holiday and we want to think about having fun. We don't want to be thinking about having problems. The thing is, problems happen. They might be problems that we cause because we've used the system wrong, but problems happen. We've covered error codes on the Truma system that we have in this van on that video that I've just put an image on now, and I'll put a link in the description below, everyone. I would always print from the manufacturer site the list of error codes and keep that page in the van forever. Why? Because something's going to happen. you're going to trigger an error code. You're not going to know what the code is. You're going to go to your phone and you're going to Google it, and you've got no signal because you're out somewhere nice camping and there's just no telephone signal. Have it printed out, and at least you know what you're tackling. Number 7, some people think that the 230 volt plug sockets that are fitted in the vehicle will work without being connected to an electric hookup. Now that probably sounds basic, but you know what? We all only know these things when we know these things, don't we? They don't work. So the only way that the 3-pin sockets in this van will work is if we're connected up to an electric hookup. Yes, you can have an inverter installed, but in general, no electric hookup outside, no 230 volt mains inside. Your 12 volt sockets, of which we've got one humble USB socket here, they will work fine, but the 230 volt, they will not. Number 8, so for this next one, I want your input, and I want you to basically go into the comment section and give me your answers, because I'm going to give you a task. If you've never driven a campervan or motorhome before, but you're obviously driving a car, the next time you're driving along a lovely B road, or just basically a narrow lane in the UK or wherever you are, I want you to do me a favour. I want you to glance at the side of that lane, and I want you to look out for where the trees are located. Maybe lampposts, but normally just trees, isn't it, on a little country lane. I want you to have a look at where the trees are located, and you might be thinking, why do I need to do this? They're located in the ground. Yes, I know they're located in the ground, but my point will be, on many of the lanes that we drive down in this van, you become acutely aware that many of the trees are literally at the very edge of the tarmac of the road. In a car, you won't have thought about that. But I guarantee you now, if you're driving a van that's 2.35 metres wide, and you've got mirrors that are sticking out that much, and those mirrors can cost, from Fiat, you can get copies, £450, £500, you become very aware very quickly, particularly if there's an oncoming vehicle, because of course now you're thinking, I've got to worry about the mirror on the driver's side, but if there's trees lining the line there, I've got to also worry about the mirror on the passenger side. Do that for me then, everyone. That's a bit of homework. You don't get away with watching this for free after all. Next time you're out in the car, just have a look, because I guarantee if you do end up buying that campervan or motorhome, you'll be more aware of them once you're driving that. The next one, number 9, nice and simple. And I know I'm going to get challenged in the comment section by a few people, and that's good, because that's what it's all about. Don't waste your pennies on buying moisture traps for a modern campervan or motorhome. This motorhome has got all the ventilation that it needs. Roller team knows how to build it. They know where the ventilation's needed. Some of the ventilation you won't necessarily notice. For instance, as you go out the hab door, the steps that you go down have actually got holes where you can see the ground from inside the vehicle. It's all to do with ventilation. If you stick moisture traps in this van, you're going to be basically sucking moisture from the outside of the van. You're not helping the van whatsoever. Don't waste your money. Don't buy moisture traps. We certainly don't put moisture traps in our Amazon storefront shop, because we don't use them in this van. Number 10, when emptying the toilet cassette. Now, we have done a video unsurprisingly for that, and it's this one, and I'll put a link in the description below, everyone. When emptying it, don't put that screw cap that you're going to have to take off to empty it. Don't put it anywhere around the periphery of that Elson point. Put it on the floor. And the reason I say put it on the floor is going to sound obvious, but it happens. I can imagine the amount of caps that have been lost in the Elson point. If you place it at the edge of the Elson point, by the time you've emptied that toilet cassette and you've done that thing that you do where you'll know once you've watched the video, if you've never done it before, where you're going to get the hose that's always supplied and you're going to turn the tap on and you're going to swill the cassette out and then empty it again. All that moving around, particularly of the pipe and the toilet cassette, you're going to knock that cap into the Elson points, and then that's it, isn't it? Gone. You just don't want that happening. Always put it on the floor, because if you put it on the floor, it's not falling any further, is it? Time for the bonus one, the +1, as promised, everyone. Internal or external window installation. This one is really easy. Don't bother with internal. Now, with our van, we have got Remus blinds fitted, and they're very nice. They cover the front doors and of course across the windscreen. And if we park up somewhere and for whatever reason you want to have an hour or two of privacy, by all means shut those blinds. But from a point of view of being camping overnight, if you shut those blinds and you wake up in the morning and you open those blinds, you're just going to have a whole lot of condensation running down that windscreen. Only use an external windscreen cover. This is what it looked like when the four of us woke up and we looked at the windscreen that had got an external windscreen cover on. There is absolutely no condensation whatsoever. Why does this happen if you use the blinds? Well, of course, the reality is if you use the blinds, all that moisture gets trapped between the blind and the windscreen. So, of course, when you open them, you've just got water running down the glass. Whereas with an external cover, you're allowing the van to breathe because all those ventilation places that the manufacturers put in stops the windows from misting up. Four of us are in this van, and when we wake up in the morning, there is no condensation on any windows. Thank you for watching, everyone. We hope you found it informative. If you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, there'll be a link to do just that appear just above my head any moment now. Click on it. It's completely free, but it does help build the channel, and we value your support. Happy travels, everyone. Let me know in the comments what van you consider buying, and I'll see you on the next one.